The emergency alarm echoed through the Federation Council chamber as another distress signal reached the assembly. Ambassador David Reed of Earth shifted uncomfortably in his seat, watching the holographic display show yet another human colony under attack. The pirates had struck again, this time at the mining station on Kepler Prime, and Earth's pathetic defense fleet had been overwhelmed in minutes. "Honorable Council members," Reed began, his voice carrying the familiar tone of desperation that had become his trademark over the past 5 years. "I must once again request immediate military assistance from our Federation partners. Our people are dying while we speak." War Commander Thane of the Corvan Empire leaned back in his massive chair, his forearms crossed in obvious annoyance. The reptilian warrior's scales shifted from green to a darker shade, indicating his growing irritation. "Ambassador Reed, this is the 7th attack on human territories this month. Perhaps it is time your species considered abandoning those outer colonies and consolidating your forces." The suggestion drew murmurs of agreement from several council members. Reed's face reddened with what appeared to be genuine embarrassment. "War Commander, we cannot simply abandon our people. These colonies represent decades of human effort and sacrifice. Surely the Federation has the resources to protect all member species equally." Science Director Quinn of the Nethri Collective activated her neural interface, causing the crystalline formations on her head to glow softly. Data streams flowed across her translucent skin as she accessed the latest intelligence reports. The human military response time to the Kepler Prime incident was 47 minutes. Their weapons achieved a mere 12% effectiveness rating against standard pirate vessels. These numbers are concerning. Trade Prince Rin of the Veylan Union adjusted his ceremonial robes, the fabric shimmering with embedded circuitry that displayed his current wealth status. The economic impact of constant rescue operations is becoming unsustainable. Earth contributes less than 2% of the Federation's total resources, yet requires nearly 15% of our military interventions. Reed's shoulders sagged as he absorbed the criticism. Around the circular chamber, representatives from dozens of species watched with varying degrees of sympathy and frustration. The Corvan delegation whispered among themselves in their harsh battle language, while the Nethri shared data through their collective consciousness network. Even the usually neutral Aquarian ambassadors seemed to be losing patience with humanity's constant pleas for help. "I understand the burden we place on this council," Reed replied, his voice barely above a whisper. "Earth's technology is primitive compared to your advanced civilizations. Our weapons are crude, our ships are slow, and our defenses are weak. But we are trying to improve. We have established research partnerships with several member species, and we are working tirelessly to upgrade our capabilities." The Corvan War Commander's laugh was a harsh, grating sound that filled the chamber. "Trying to improve? Ambassador, your people have been members of this Federation for 50 years. In that time, the Nethri have developed 3 new forms of faster-than-light travel. The Veylan have created entirely new economic models, and even the smallest member species have made significant technological advances. What has Earth contributed?" The question hung in the air like a physical weight. Reed fumbled with his datapad, bringing up a holographic display of Earth's recent achievements. "We have successfully terraformed 3 new worlds using atmospheric processors. Our agricultural output has increased by 18%. We have established mining operations on 47 asteroids and moons throughout human space." "Terraforming with century-old technology," Quinn interjected, her voice carrying the musical tones of her species. "The atmospheric processors you mention are based on designs the Nethri abandoned 300 years ago. Your mining operations use equipment that most species would consider museum pieces." Reed's face flushed deeper. "We work with what we have, Science Director. Not all species are blessed with the intellectual gifts of the Nethri or the military prowess of the Corvan. We are doing our best with limited resources." The chamber fell silent as the implications of Reed's words sank in. Several ambassadors exchanged glances, and the floating observer drones that recorded council sessions adjusted their positions to capture the humans' apparent admission of inferiority. Trade Prince Rin's wealth display flickered as he processed the economic implications. Perhaps it would be more efficient to relocate the human population to protected core worlds. We could establish refugee camps with adequate facilities. The cost would be significant, but less than the ongoing military expenditures. Refugee camps? Reed's voice cracked with emotion. You're suggesting we abandon our entire civilization and become charity cases. We may be weak, but we are still proud people. We have a right to exist in our own space, to build our own future. War Commander Thane's scales shifted to a deeper shade of irritation. Pride is a luxury that weak species cannot afford, Ambassador. In the galaxy there are predators and prey. The strong protect the weak, but the weak must accept their place in the natural order. The brutal honesty of the statement seemed to break something in Reed. His shoulders slumped further, and his hands trembled slightly as he set down his datapad. I understand your position, War Commander, but I must continue to advocate for my people. It is my duty as their representative. Around the chamber, the other ambassadors watched with mixtures of pity and frustration. The Aquarian delegates' tentacles writhed in what their species considered sympathy, while the silicon-based crystalline union representative's body dimmed in respectful acknowledgement of Reed's difficult position. Very well, Thane said finally, his voice carrying the weight of command. The Corvin Empire will dispatch a patrol squadron to the Kepler Prime system, but this cannot continue indefinitely. Earth must find a way to defend itself or accept the consequences of its weakness. Reed's face lit up with genuine gratitude. Thank you, War Commander. Your generosity will not be forgotten. The people of Earth will work even harder to prove themselves worthy of the Federation's protection. As the council session concluded and the various ambassadors filed out of the chamber, Reed remained in his seat, staring at the holographic display that still showed the burning remains of the Kepler Prime mining station. His shoulders shook slightly, and several departing delegates assumed he was crying from shame and frustration. They were wrong. David Reed was fighting very hard not to smile. In the depths of space, far from the Federation's watchful sensors, a sleek vessel that bore no resemblance to any known human ship received an encrypted transmission. The message was brief. Performance evaluation complete. Maintain current operational parameters. Phase 2 authorization pending. The ship's commander, a woman who looked remarkably similar to Ambassador Reed despite the genetic modifications that disguised her true identity, nodded to her crew. Continue monitoring Federation fleet movements. Update the tactical database with all observed weapons and defensive systems. And send a message to Earth Command. The charade is working perfectly. In the shadows of the galaxy, humanity's true strength remained hidden, waiting for the right moment to reveal itself. The Federation saw weakness where there was careful planning, desperation where there was patience, and primitive technology where there was deliberate misdirection. The greatest deception in galactic history was just beginning. The first reports arrived during the night shift at Federation Intelligence Headquarters. Lieutenant Torres of the Monitoring Division almost dismissed them as sensor ghosts or pirate activity until she noticed the pattern. 3 separate star systems on the galactic rim had gone silent within hours of each other, their automated beacon signals simply stopping without explanation or distress calls. Director Walsh, she called across the command center, her voice tight with concern. We're seeing coordinated communication blackouts in the outer rim sectors. Something big is happening out there. Director Walsh hurried to Torres's station, his coffee mug forgotten as he studied the tactical display. Red zones marked the silent systems, forming a rough line across the galaxy's edge. Have we received any evacuation requests? Emergency transmissions? Nothing, sir. The signals just ... stopped. No warnings, no battles detected by our long-range sensors. It's like these systems just ceased to exist. Within hours, the mystery deepened. A badly damaged Valen merchant vessel limped into Federation space, its hull scarred by weapons that left unusual burn patterns. The crew's testimony sent shockwaves through the intelligence community. They spoke of ships that looked like living creatures, armor that healed itself, and weapons that seemed to learn from each attack. The Draconis hegemony had returned to the galaxy after 3 centuries of silence. Trade prints. Rin studied the merchant's damaged hull with growing alarm. The metal wasn't just melted or burned. It had been systematically disassembled at the molecular level, as if the attacking weapons had convinced the ship's own structure to tear itself apart. "This is not conventional plasma damage," he murmured to his technical advisors. "These weapons are unlike anything in our databases." The Federation Council convened an emergency session, but the mood was far different from their usual composed deliberations. War Commander Thane's scales had shifted to the deep red of combat readiness, while Science Director Quinn's neural interfaces flickered rapidly as she processed incoming data streams. "The hegemony was defeated 300 years ago," Thane growled, his forearms gesturing aggressively. "Their empire was shattered, their worlds burned, their fleets scattered to the void. How is this possible?" Ambassador Reed sat quietly in his usual position, appearing as confused and frightened as any of the other delegates. "Perhaps they have rebuilt in the outer darkness," he suggested meekly. 3 centuries is a long time to recover and plan. Revenge. Quinn's crystalline formations pulsed with an urgent blue light. "The technology described by the Valen survivors is far beyond what the hegemony possessed during their last expansion. Their weapons have evolved, adapted. The biomechanical nature of their ships suggests they have developed some form of living technology." The first major battle came 2 weeks later at the Proxima Gate, a strategic choke point that controlled access to 3 major trade routes. The Corvan Empire deployed its finest battle fleet, 200 warships armed with the most advanced weapons the Federation could provide. War Commander Thane himself led the fleet, confident that superior numbers and firepower would halt any hegemony advance. The battle lasted 6 hours. Only 17 Corvan ships survived to retreat, the after-action. Reports painted a terrifying picture. The hegemony's ships were indeed alive, their hulls pulsing with organic rhythms while mechanical systems integrated seamlessly with biological components. When damaged, the ships would literally heal themselves, closing hull breaches and regenerating weapon systems within minutes. Worse, they seemed to adapt to Federation weapons in real time, developing resistances that rendered entire weapon types useless. "They learned," Thane reported to the emergency council session, his voice hollow with defeat. "Every time we hit them with plasma cannons, they adapted. Our particle beams became less effective with each shot. By the end of the battle, our most powerful weapons were barely scratching their hulls." The hegemony's advance continued with terrifying efficiency. The Nethri Collective's technological superiority proved meaningless against an enemy that could analyze and counter their innovations. Within hours, their quantum computers, capable of processing vast amounts of data, were overwhelmed by the hegemony's ability to constantly evolve their tactics. "They are not just using advanced technology," Quinn reported, her usual calm demeanor cracking. "They are becoming it. Each engagement makes them stronger, more adapted to our methods. We are fighting an enemy that grows more powerful with every battle." The Valen Union's mercenary fleets, motivated by profit rather than loyalty, began abandoning their contracts as news of the defeats spread. Trade Prince Rin watched his economic empire crumble as systems fell to the hegemony advance. Trade routes were severed, and entire sectors became economically isolated. "The cost of resistance is becoming prohibitive," he admitted to the council. "My people are businessmen, not warriors. We cannot justify continued losses against an enemy that appears unstoppable." Through it all, Ambassador Reed maintained his role as the concerned representative of a weak species. Earth's colonies began their own preparations for evacuation, though to outside observers the movement seemed disorganized and panicked. Human transport ships loaded with refugees fled toward the galactic core, adding to the growing sense of chaos and desperation. "We are doing everything we can to prepare our defenses," Reed reported, his voice shaking with apparent fear. "But if the hegemony continues their advance, Earth may not be able to withstand their assault. We are evacuating our most vulnerable populations and consolidating our forces, but our capabilities are limited. The Federation's outer defense lines collapsed one by one. The proud Corvan battle fleets, reduced to a fraction of their former strength, fell back toward the core worlds. The Nethri scientific installations were abandoned as their personnel fled to safer systems. Even the normally neutral Aquarian colonies began evacuating their populations. Fleet Marshal Kados of the Draconis hegemony studied the tactical displays from his command ship, a massive vessel that seemed to breathe with its own life force. His cybernetic implants, grown rather than built, interfaced directly with the ship's consciousness as he processed the intelligence reports. "The Federation is weaker than our ancestors reported," he told his sub-commanders, his voice carrying the electronic harmonics of his technological enhancements. "Their weapons are primitive, their tactics predictable. The Corvan fight with honor but lack innovation. The Nethri possess knowledge but cannot adapt quickly enough. The Valen have resources but no will to use them." One of his advisors, a being that was more machine than organic, projected a holographic display of the galaxy. "The human territories lie directly in our path to the core worlds. Intelligence suggests they are the weakest of all Federation species. Their evacuation efforts appear chaotic and poorly organized." Kados nodded, his attention already moving to more significant targets. "The humans will barely slow our advance. Deploy minimal forces to pacify their worlds. Our main fleets will continue toward the primary Federation strongholds." The decision would prove to be the hegemony's greatest mistake. In the depths of space, far from any star or inhabited world, a meeting took place that would change the course of galactic history. The participants arrived in ships that bore no resemblance to any known human vessel, their technology so advanced it seemed to bend the laws of physics. The woman who had once been Ambassador Reed's genetic double stood before a holographic display that showed the hegemony's advance. "Phase 2 is authorized," she announced to the assembled fleet commanders. "All units are to maintain cover positions until the enemy reaches the Sol system. Observer teams will continue monitoring Federation military capabilities and hegemony. Tactical adaptations." One commander, a man whose appearance would have shocked anyone who knew Earth's apparently humble mining operations, raised a question. "What about the civilian evacuations? Some of our people are genuinely concerned about the colonies." The woman's expression softened slightly. "The evacuations are real, but they serve multiple purposes. Our people are being relocated to safer positions, and the movement helps maintain the deception. The Federation must continue to believe we are weak until the moment we reveal ourselves." As the meeting concluded and the impossible ships vanished into dimensions that Federation science couldn't detect, the galaxy continued its spiral toward chaos. The hegemony's advance seemed unstoppable, the Federation's defenses crumbled, and humanity appeared to be running scared. Everything was proceeding exactly according to plan. The hegemony fleet arrived at the edge of the Sol system like a dark tide spreading across the stars. Fleet Marshal Kados stood within the consciousness chamber of his flagship, his cybernetic implants pulsing with data streams as he surveyed humanity's pathetic defenses. 36 human vessels hung in space around Earth, their crude metal hulls scarred from countless battles with pirates and raiders. "This is what the Federation considers worthy of protection?" Kados asked his tactical coordinator, a being whose organic components had been almost entirely replaced by adaptive biomechanical systems. 37 vessels, most of them converted cargo haulers. Their largest ship appears to be a retrofitted mining platform. The coordinator's optical sensors focused on the human fleet, analyzing their formations with the contempt of a predator studying wounded prey. Energy signatures are consistent with primitive fusion reactors. Their weapons appear to be standard plasma cannons, at least 50 years behind current Federation technology. Defensive systems show no evidence of adaptive capabilities. Around Earth itself, the orbital defense platforms looked equally unimpressive. Ancient railgun installations rotated slowly on their mounting brackets, while missile batteries tracked the approaching hegemony fleet with mechanical precision. The whole system appeared to be automated, with no signs of the advanced AI systems that protected more developed worlds. "The humans are not even attempting to evacuate their homeworld," observed another sub-commander, her voice carrying the musical tones of her species enhanced by technological modifications. "Either they are too primitive to understand the danger, or they are paralyzed by fear." Kados nodded, already focusing his attention on the more significant targets deeper in Federation space. "Deploy the secondary assault fleet. 100 ships should be more than sufficient to pacify this system. The main force will continue toward the core worlds while the humans are being processed." The secondary fleet moved forward, their living ships pulsing with eager anticipation. These vessels had adapted to dozens of Federation weapon types during their advance, their hulls shifting and evolving to counter each new threat. The human plasma cannons would likely prove even less effective than the Corvin's advanced energy weapons. The battle began exactly as expected. The human fleet charged forward with what appeared to be desperate courage, their weapons blazing ineffectively against the hegemony's adaptive armor. Ship after ship exploded under the relentless assault, their crews probably screaming in terror, as their primitive vessels were overwhelmed by superior technology. "Their tactical coordination is non-existent," reported the tactical coordinator, his voice carrying a note of disappointment. "They are fighting like individual units rather than a coordinated fleet. Their weapons are achieving less than 5% effectiveness against our adaptive defenses." Within minutes, the human fleet was reduced to scattered debris. The surviving vessels fled toward Earth's orbital platforms, apparently hoping to find shelter behind the planet's defensive systems. The hegemony fleet followed, their weapons charging for the final phase of the assault. The orbital platforms opened fire as the enemy closed range, their railguns sending solid projectiles at significant fractions of light speed. The missiles followed, thousands of them streaming toward the hegemony fleet in what appeared to be humanity's last, desperate gambit. "Physical projectiles," Kados noted with mild interest. "How quaint. Their technology is even more primitive than our initial assessments suggested." The hegemony's adaptive armor began analyzing the incoming threats, preparing to counter the kinetic impacts and explosive warheads. Their point defense systems activated, energy beams sweeping space clear of the approaching missiles. The railgun projectiles struck their hulls with impressive force, but the living metal simply absorbed and redistributed the energy. "Minimal damage to the fleet," reported the tactical coordinator. "Their weapons are completely ineffective against our adaptive systems. We are ready to begin planetary bombardment." That was when the impossible happened. The orbital platforms that had been firing conventional weapons suddenly flickered, their solid forms wavering like mirages in desert heat. The railgun installations that had been tracking the hegemony fleet with mechanical precision vanished, revealing themselves as sophisticated holographic projections. In their place, structures that seemed to bend space itself emerged from what appeared to be dimensional storage. "What in the void?" Kados demanded, his cybernetic implants struggling to process the sensor data. "Those platforms are not physically possible. They appear to be manipulating local space-time." The new weapons opened fire, but these were not the primitive plasma cannons or railguns the hegemony had been expecting. Beams of twisted space-time struck the adaptive armor, and for the first time in the campaign, the living metal began to fail. The hegemony's ships, which had evolved to counter every known weapon type, found themselves facing energy patterns that seemed to rewrite the basic laws of physics. "Our adaptive systems are not responding," the tactical coordinator reported, his voice tight with something approaching fear. "The weapons are operating on quantum levels we cannot analyze or counter. Hull integrity is failing across multiple vessels." More ships were emerging from concealment around Earth, but these bore no resemblance to the crude vessels that had been destroyed minutes earlier. They moved with fluid grace, their hulls shifting and changing as they adapted to combat conditions. But this was not the slow biological adaptation of the hegemony's technology. These ships were reconfiguring themselves in real time, their very matter obeying commands that seemed to transcend conventional engineering. Impossible, Katos breathed, watching his supposedly invincible fleet being systematically dismantled. No species possesses this level of technological advancement. The Federation's most advanced civilizations are centuries behind what we are witnessing. The human ships closed range, their weapons tearing through the hegemony's adaptive armor as if it were paper. The biomechanical vessels that had seemed so terrifying against Federation forces now appeared crude and primitive compared to the reality-bending technology that Earth had revealed. "Fleet Marshal," his communication officer called out, her voice cracking with panic. "We are receiving a transmission from the human fleet. It appears to be coming from their flagship." The image that appeared on Katos's command screen showed a human woman in military uniform, her expression calm and professional despite the battle raging around her. She appeared to be standing on the bridge of a vessel that seemed to exist in multiple dimensions simultaneously, its interior space somehow larger than its exterior dimensions should have allowed. "I am Captain Torres of the Earth Defense Force," she said, her voice carrying easily across the communication channels. "You are ordered to cease your attack and withdraw from this system immediately. This is your only warning." Kato stared at the transmission in shock. "You are bluffing. Humans are the weakest species in the Federation. Your technology is primitive, your military capabilities negligible. This display is some kind of illusion." Torres's expression didn't change. "Fleet Marshal Katos, in the past 73 minutes, you have lost 46 vessels to our defensive systems. Your adaptive armor has proven ineffective against our quantum disruption fields. Your regenerative capabilities cannot repair damage caused by gravitational manipulation. Would you like U.S. to continue this demonstration?" The tactical displays confirmed her words. The secondary assault fleet was being destroyed with methodical efficiency, their adaptive defenses useless against weapons that operated on principles the hegemony couldn't understand. Ships that had seemed invincible hours earlier were being reduced to their component atoms. "This is impossible," Katos repeated, his worldview crumbling around him. "The Federation intelligence reports, the council sessions, the observed battles, humans are weak. You lack the technology, the resources, the knowledge to possess such capabilities." "The Federation sees what we allow them to see," Torres replied, her voice carrying a note of satisfaction. "For 50 years we have maintained the illusion of weakness while observing and learning. Your species has provided us with invaluable data about adaptive military technology. We thank you for your contribution to our research." The remaining hegemony ships began to retreat, their crews finally understanding that they faced an enemy far beyond their capabilities. The vessels that had swept aside the Federation's finest fleets were fleeing in terror from humanity's true military might. "Withdraw to minimum safe distance," Katos ordered, his voice hollow with defeat. "Transmit emergency reports to all hegemony territories. We have encountered an enemy that poses an existential threat to our expansion." As the hegemony fleet pulled back, more human vessels emerged from concealment throughout the system. They had been hidden not just from sensors but from physical reality itself, existing in dimensional spaces that conventional technology couldn't detect. The true size of Earth's defense force was becoming apparent, and it dwarfed anything the galaxy had seen before. Captain Torres's image remained on the communication screen, watching as the once mighty hegemony fleet limped away from Earth's defenses. "Fleet Marshal, you are welcome to observe our capabilities from a safe distance. We believe the galaxy should understand what happens when humanity stops pretending to be weak." The battle for Earth was over before it had truly begun. The hegemony, which had seemed unstoppable against the Federation's forces, had been defeated by a species they had dismissed as barely evolved primitives. The galaxy was about to learn that appearances could be very deceiving indeed. The emergency session of the Federation Council convened in chaos. Representatives from across the galaxy had witnessed the impossible defense of Earth, through long-range sensors and communication relays. The same human fleet that had been destroyed by the hegemony's secondary assault force had somehow reappeared, wielding weapons that defied known physics and defeating an enemy that had proven unstoppable against everyone else. War Commander Thane paced behind his delegation's seats, his scales shifting through multiple shades of confusion and anger. "This makes no sense," he growled to his advisors. "The humans were destroyed. We observed their ships exploding, their crews dying. How did they return to defeat the hegemony?" Science Director Quinn's neural interfaces flickered rapidly as she processed the sensor data from the Earth system. Her crystalline formations pulsed with chaotic patterns as her collective consciousness struggled to understand what they had witnessed. "The technology displayed by the human fleet operates on principles we cannot analyze. They appear to have mastered dimensional manipulation, quantum field theory, and gravitational control to degrees we believed impossible." Trade Prince Rin studied the economic implications on his wealth display robes, the numbers shifting so rapidly they became a blur. The resources required to develop such technology would dwarf the entire Federation's annual budget. Where did the humans acquire the materials, the research facilities, the manufacturing capabilities? The chamber fell silent as Ambassador Reed entered, but the man who walked to the human delegation seats bore little resemblance to the desperate supplicant who had pleaded for protection just days earlier. His posture was straight, his movements confident, and his eyes held a sharpness that had been carefully hidden for decades. "Honorable Council members," Reed began, his voice carrying new authority that made several representatives shift uncomfortably. "I believe explanations are in order. The time for deception has ended, and humanity is ready to reveal its true nature to the galaxy." The holographic displays throughout the chamber activated, showing detailed recordings of the battle at Earth, but these were not the grainy long-range sensor images the Council had seen before. These were crystal-clear recordings from multiple angles, showing the human fleet's impossible technology in perfect detail. "For 50 years, Reed continued, humanity has maintained the illusion of weakness while studying every species in the Federation. We have observed your military capabilities, analyzed your technologies, and learned the nature of your civilizations." The bumbling, desperate Ambassador Reed was a carefully constructed persona designed to lower your guard. War Commander Thane's scales shifted to deep red as the implications sank in. "You deceived us. For half a century, you lied to this council, manipulated our decisions, and made us believe you were helpless." "We observed," Reed corrected. "We learned. We prepared. The Federation is built on a hierarchy of strength, with the powerful protecting the weak. We chose to understand that hierarchy completely before revealing our place in it." The displays showed human colonies that had appeared to be struggling outposts, their surfaces dissolving to reveal massive industrial complexes that could manufacture starships by the thousands. Mining operations that had seemed crude and inefficient were actually sophisticated resource extraction facilities that could process entire asteroid belts in days rather than years. "Your terraforming projects," Quinn said, her voice tight with intellectual embarrassment. "The atmospheric processors we dismissed as primitive technology were covers for advanced research stations," Reed confirmed. "Each colony specialized in different aspects of human technology. While you believed we were struggling to make barren worlds habitable, we were actually developing the weapons you just witnessed at Earth." The revelations continued with methodical precision. The human trade routes that had been constantly attacked by pirates were revealed as intelligence networks, allowing Earth to map and monitor every significant military installation in the galaxy. The refugee ships that had fled from the hegemony's advance were actually positioning forces throughout Federation space, ready to strike at strategic targets. "The merchant vessel that warned us about the hegemony," Trade Prince Rin said, his wealth display flickering with realization. "It was human, wasn't it? You knew they were coming. We detected the hegemony's return 3 months before they reached Federation space," Reed admitted. "Their technology posed an interesting challenge. so we allowed them to advance while gathering data about their adaptive capabilities. The threat they represented to the Federation was real, but we were never in any danger. Dr. Kim, Earth's chief scientist, materialized as a hologram in the center of the chamber. His appearance was as unremarkable as any human's, but the technology he demonstrated made the Federation's greatest achievements look primitive by comparison. Matter assembled itself at his command, forming complex structures that existed in multiple dimensions simultaneously. The hegemony's adaptive armor was indeed impressive. Dr. Kim explained, his voice carrying the casual tone of someone discussing simple mathematics. However, their adaptation was biological, operating on the level of molecular structures. Our quantum disruption fields attack matter at the subatomic level, preventing any form of adaptation or regeneration. He gestured, and the assembled matter transformed into a perfect replica of a hegemony vessel, complete with its living hull and adaptive systems. We have been studying their technology for decades, ever since our deep space monitoring stations detected their reconstruction efforts in the void beyond the galactic rim. Their return was not a surprise. It was an expected development in our long-term planning. The Federation representatives watched in stunned silence as Dr. Kim demonstrated technology that seemed to rewrite the laws of physics. He created matter from energy, manipulated spacetime like a sculptor working with clay, and showed communication systems that could transmit information instantly across galactic distances. The faster-than-light travel systems you have observed, Dr. Kim continued, operate by folding space rather than moving through it. Our ships do not accelerate to light speed, they step between points in spacetime, allowing us to appear anywhere in the galaxy within minutes rather than months. War Commander Thane's forearms trembled with barely contained rage. You could have ended the hegemony threat before it began. Instead, you allowed them to destroy our fleets, kill our people, and devastate our territories. Thousands died because of your deception. Reed's expression softened slightly, showing the first hint of genuine regret. The cost was regrettable, but necessary. The Federation needed to understand the true nature of the threat, and we needed to observe the hegemony's capabilities under combat conditions. If we had revealed ourselves earlier, both the Federation and the hegemony would have focused their attention on humanity. The resulting conflict would have been far more devastating. The chamber erupted in angry voices as the implications became clear. The humans had watched the Federation's forces being destroyed while possessing the power to intervene at any time. They had used the galaxy's suffering as a testing ground for their technology and a source of intelligence about potential enemies. You used us? Science Director Quinn said, her neural interfaces pulsing with patterns of betrayal and anger. Our defeats, our losses, our desperation, all of it was data for your calculations. We protected ourselves, Reed replied, his voice carrying steel beneath the diplomatic courtesy. For 50 years we have hidden among you, learning your strengths and weaknesses. We know which species can be trusted, which ones are driven by honor, and which ones would turn on their allies for profit. This knowledge will be crucial in establishing the new galactic order. The phrase sent chills through the assembled delegates. New galactic order. The humans were not just revealing their strength, they were preparing to use it. The Federation has served its purpose, Reed continued, his words carrying the weight of absolute authority. It has provided a framework for galactic civilization, but its structure is flawed. The strong dominate the weak, the powerful exploit the helpless, and progress is measured by military might rather than wisdom. Humanity proposes a different approach. The displays showed images of human fleets emerging from hidden bases throughout the galaxy. The ships numbered in the hundreds of thousands, their technology so advanced they appeared to be crafted from solidified starlight. Each vessel carried the power to destroy entire star systems, yet they moved with impossible grace and silence. The hegemony will be dealt with, Reed announced, his voice carrying the finality of an executioner's sentence. Their expansion will be halted, their military capabilities will be neutralized, and their threat to galactic civilization will be eliminated. This is not a request or a proposal, it is a statement of fact. The Federation Council had gathered to discuss humanity's mysterious defense of Earth. Instead, they found themselves witnessing the revelation of the galaxy's new dominant power. The species they had dismissed as primitives had been playing a game none of them had understood, and the final moves were already in motion. The age of the Federation was ending. The age of humanity was about to begin, the hegemony's home system. Of Draconis Prime had stood unconquered for over 1,000 years. Its massive orbital fortresses bristled with weapons that could shatter moons, while defense fleets numbering in the tens of thousands patrolled the outer system. The planet itself was a fortress world, its surface covered with military installations that could theoretically hold off any conceivable attack. Fleet Marshal Kados stood in the Strategic Command Center, his cybernetic implants processing defensive reports from across the system. 3 days had passed since the humiliating defeat at Earth, and the hegemony's military leaders were still struggling to understand what they had encountered. The humans had revealed technology that made their own adaptive systems look like primitive tools. "Status report," Kados demanded, his voice carrying the electronic harmonics of his technological enhancements. The beings around him, a mixture of organic life and mechanical precision, responded with military efficiency honed by centuries of conquest. "All outer defense perimeters are fully operational," reported his tactical coordinator. "The fortress stations are running continuous sensor sweeps, and our patrol fleets are maintaining maximum alertness. If the humans approach, we will detect them long before they reach effective weapons range." Kados nodded, but his confidence was shattered. The same sensors that had failed to detect Earth's true defenses were now their only warning system against an enemy whose capabilities they couldn't comprehend. "What about our intelligence networks? Any sign of human fleet movements?" "Negative, Fleet Marshal. Our deep space monitoring stations report no unusual activity in human territories. Their ships appear to be maintaining defensive positions around their major colonies." The report should have been reassuring, but Kados felt only growing dread. The humans had demonstrated the ability to hide massive fleets from detection, to manipulate space-time itself, and to deploy weapons that operated on principles the hegemony couldn't understand. If they wanted to attack Draconis Prime, they could probably do so without being detected until the moment of assault. That moment came sooner than anyone expected. The first sign of the attack was not sensor contacts or energy signatures. Instead, reality itself began to shift around the outer defense perimeters. Space twisted and folded, creating dimensional rifts that violated every known law of physics. Through these impossible gateways stepped the human fleet, their ships, emerging directly into the heart of the hegemony's supposedly impregnable defenses. "Impossible," breathed the tactical coordinator, his optical sensors struggling to process what they were witnessing. "They are materializing inside our defensive grid. Our fortress weapons cannot target them without hitting our own installations." The human vessels that appeared were unlike anything seen before, even during the battle at Earth. These ships seemed to exist in multiple dimensions simultaneously, their hulls shifting between states of matter that conventional sensors couldn't analyze. They moved without visible propulsion, gliding through space as if the laws of physics were merely suggestions to be ignored. "Open fire," Kados ordered, desperation creeping into his voice. "All stations, engage the enemy fleet with maximum firepower." The hegemony's weapons opened fire, unleashing energies that could crack continental plates and gravitational forces that could compress matter into neutron star densities. The barrage that struck the human fleet should have vaporized anything made of conventional matter, but the enemy ships simply absorbed the assault without apparent damage. "Their defensive systems are not deflecting our weapons," reported the tactical coordinator, his voice tight with fear. "They are converting our energy into something else entirely. Massive power readings are building within their hulls. The human ships return fire with weapons that redefine the concept of destruction. Beams of twisted spacetime struck the hegemony's fortress stations, and the massive structures simply ceased to exist. Not destroyed, not vaporized, but erased from reality as if they had never been built. The defensive installations that had protected Draconis Prime for a millennium vanished without trace or debris. "Fleet Marshal," his communication officer called out, her voice cracking with panic. "We are receiving a transmission from the human fleet. The same woman from Earth is requesting to speak with you." Captain Torres appeared on the command screen, her image calm and professional, despite the impossible battle raging around them. Behind her, the bridge of her vessel seemed to exist in a space larger than the ship's exterior dimensions, filled with technologies that hurt to look at directly. "Fleet Marshal Kados," she said, her voice carrying easily across the communication channels. "You are ordered to surrender all military forces and submit to human authority. The Draconis hegemony's expansion is hereby terminated." Kados stared at the transmission in shock and rage. "You dare demand our surrender? The hegemony has conquered 1,000 worlds, defeated countless enemies, and ruled this galaxy for centuries. We will not submit to any species, especially not humans." "Your choice," Torres replied, her expression unchanging. "Observe." The human fleet's formation shifted, and their weapons turned toward Draconis Prime itself. The planet's surface bristled with defensive installations that could supposedly withstand any assault, but the beams that struck them made the previous demonstrations look like children's toys. Mountains disappeared, oceans boiled away into space, and the very continents began to reshape themselves under the assault of weapons that manipulated matter at the quantum level. "Stop," Kados whispered, watching his species' homeworld being systematically dismantled. "We surrender." The hegemony surrenders unconditionally. The devastating barrage ceased instantly, leaving Draconis Prime scarred but still habitable. The message was clear: humanity possessed the power to destroy worlds but chose to demonstrate restraint. They were not conquerors seeking to eliminate their enemies. They were establishing dominance through overwhelming superiority. "Wise choice," Torres said, her voice carrying a note of approval. "Your fleets will be disarmed and your military installations will be decommissioned. The hegemony's expansion is ended, but your species will not be destroyed. Humanity believes in rehabilitation rather than extermination. Within days, the impossible became routine. Human fleets appeared simultaneously at every major hegemony stronghold, their technology allowing them to coordinate attacks across thousands of light years instantly. The empire that had seemed unstoppable against Federation forces crumbled with shocking speed as their adaptive advantages proved useless against humanity's reality-bending capabilities. Meanwhile, the Federation Council convened an emergency session to address the new galactic reality. The chamber that had once hosted debates about protecting weak species from strong ones now faced the prospect of a single species that could dominate all others combined. Director Reed, no longer hiding behind the mask of ambassador, addressed the assembly with the authority of absolute power. "The Federation has served its purpose, but its structure is fundamentally flawed. A system based on the strong dominating the weak inevitably leads to conflicts like the hegemony crisis." War Commander Thane's scales had shifted to a deep purple, indicating confusion and uncertainty. "What do you propose instead? Your species now possesses the power to rule the galaxy by force. How is that different from any other empire?" "Because we choose not to rule by force alone," Reed replied. "Humanity proposes a new galactic order based on cooperation rather than domination. Species that demonstrate wisdom and peaceful intent will be granted access to human technology. Those that prove trustworthy will become partners rather than subjects." Science Director Quinn's neural interfaces flickered with patterns of hope and skepticism. "And species that refuse to cooperate, those that maintain aggressive tendencies or expansionist goals, will be contained," Reed said simply. "We have the technology to prevent interstellar travel, to isolate aggressive species on their homeworlds, and to defend peaceful civilizations from any threat. The choice is cooperation or isolation, not conquest or destruction," The offer was unprecedented in galactic history. A species with the power to conquer everyone was instead offering partnership to those who proved worthy. The Corvan empires, military might, the Nethri collective's scientific knowledge, and the Valen Union's economic networks all had roles in the new system, but only if they abandoned their previous hierarchical thinking. The transition will not be immediate, Reed continued, his voice carrying the weight of careful planning. Humanity will gradually share our technologies with species that demonstrate peaceful intentions and cooperative behavior. The process may take decades or centuries, but the end result will be a galaxy where strength protects wisdom rather than oppressing weakness. Trade Prince Rin's wealth display showed calculations of economic possibilities that exceeded his species' wildest dreams. The technologies you have demonstrated could revolutionize galactic civilization. Instant transportation, unlimited energy, matter manipulation, the potential for prosperity is beyond measure. And the potential for destruction is equally vast, Reed reminded him. This is why the process must be gradual and carefully monitored. Humanity has spent centuries developing the wisdom to use these technologies responsibly. Other species must prove they can do the same. The debate continued for hours, but the outcome was inevitable. The Federation as it had existed was dead, replaced by a new order with humanity as the senior partner. Some species embraced the change, eager to learn from their new protectors. Others resented the loss of their previous status but lacked the power to resist. The hegemony's former territories were placed under human administration. Their populations gradually integrated into the new galactic community. Fleet Marshal Kados found himself working with human advisors to transform his species from conquerors into contributors, their adaptive technologies redirected toward peaceful applications. Months later, Director Reed stood before the reformed Galactic Council, watching representatives from dozens of species work together in ways that would have been impossible under the old system. The Corvan shared military expertise with former enemies. The Nethri collaborated on research projects that benefited all members, and the Valen established trade networks that brought prosperity to previously isolated worlds. Humanity's greatest strength was never our technology, Reed told the assembly during his closing address. It was our patience and our willingness to learn before acting. We observed this galaxy for 50 years, understanding its peoples and their motivations. We could have revealed ourselves at any time and conquered through force, but we chose to wait until we could lead through example. The transformation was far from complete, and challenges remained. Some species struggled to abandon their hierarchical thinking, while others resented humanity's new authority. But for the first time in galactic history, a truly cooperative civilization seemed possible. As the council session ended and the various ambassadors prepared to return to their homeworlds, Reed reflected on the long journey that had brought them to this point. Humanity had pretended to be powerless while secretly becoming the most powerful force in the galaxy. Now they faced an even greater challenge, using that power wisely to build something better than what had come before. The galaxy would never underestimate humanity again, but more importantly, humanity had proven they deserved to lead not through fear, but through the promise of a brighter future for all sentient life.